and So here we go again. Take two. Hopefully you can hear us loud and clear. Do tell us if you can't hear us now, because I've just plugged the microphone in, which hopefully makes it a bit better. But
that's usually kind of a day.
It's been that kind of day. A very good evening to my good friend Jeffrey over in Canada. It's lovely to have your company today, sir. Hello, Zhao Ming. Terrific to have you on board as well, and Chrissy. My goodness me. Hello to everybody. Welcome to our living room. Welcome to our home, and we're going to be sharing lots of good news with you today, including some wonderful news from the pop charts. I mean, it's a long time since I used to have a little school exercise book and write down what the number one was and all that. I did that, you know.
Oh, I didn't.
That's quite scary, isn't it? But Captain Tom, and then he said Major Tom, Captain Tom, the guy who has now raised more than £25 million from the NHS for charity, has gone straight up to number one at the top of the charts. And that's wonderful news. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. So Captain Tom, the 99-year-old who will be 100 at the end of the month, and we've all got to send him a card. He's gone straight into the chart at number one. That's probably the first time that a 99-year-old has been topping the charts. And I'm not sure that his choice of singing companions was altogether to my liking, because he's teamed up with Michael Ball, but he has also teamed up with the NHS Voices of Care choir to record that wonderful song that was originally by Jerry and the Pacemakers, You'll Never Walk Alone. And you know, what a fantastic guy. He's really an inspiration to everybody. And he needs a knighthood. He really does. So if Her Madge is listening, good evening to you, Mum. And let's get on the case. And how about knighting him on his birthday? I think that would be an absolutely wonderful gesture. Wow. As we all sort of come together as a nation and put all past sort of divisions behind us. Even the politicians aren't squabbling as much as they normally do. Although that might have been due to the fact that probably because of in lockdown, that fellow we watched on Sunday mornings, Andrew Marr couldn't get so many guests in today. Hello, Gary. Hope things are good with you, sir. And Oxford's doing quite well at the moment, aren't they? Because they're at the forefront of the race here, as far as the UK is concerned, to produce a vaccine for this. And on Andrew Marr this morning, they were saying that we may have like 1 million doses of this thing ready to give out by sort of September, October time this year, in a good case optimistic sort of scenario, which I think would be absolutely awesome. And over and above that, my good friend Dr. Mike Brooks, who you can see on my timeline a bit lower down, we had a very long natter about he's a frontline medical doctor. He's also a very kind of smart fella. I sent him a list of 30 questions that I want to know about this thing that hadn't been answered in any of the news reports or articles that I'd seen, and he very kindly researched all this from all the latest medical journals and stuff. The medical front as well is good on sort of repurposing medicines which have already got approval from the FDA and others for use on patients, and we're just finding out now whether they work against this, and attacking the so-called cytokine storm, is it called, I believe, the fact that the body turns its machine guns on itself and attacks itself because it gets so worked up about the old COVID that might be, again, a very positive way forward, and a way of sort of making it not much more serious than flu. I think I'm paraphrasing him reasonably accurately in respect of that. So we are living in very good, very happy times.
Yep, getting better day by day. And it's Dr. Michael Brooks is just has got so much knowledge and so much wisdom as well, and it's amazing how communication is just fabulous.
Well, you've met him. He's one terrific guy. He's a really nice guy, and it's so generous of him to give up his time to chat to us about all the latest developments in the science, because that is kind of important.
Yeah, this kind of interview you don't get to see on television or on the big media. It's a very down to earth from someone that is out there in the ground, someone very knowledgeable, and what an amazing friend you have.
And you know, you can ask him the questions. That there's no spin doctor or anything massaging what he says, and it's just I send him a list of questions, he researches all the answers, and then he tells me like it is. And so that was a fabulous thing. We were superbly lucky, really, to well, I know Dr. Mike because we're on the same radio station. You know, we both have the same roots, and we went to the same school. So that's a kind of very close link there. But what a lovely fella.
One of the takeaways on that interview interview that struck home. It's that wearing masks. Yes, I know we all need them to protect ourselves. However, it is a good point about what he said about the doctors and nurses and frontline staff needed them more. And yeah, I wonder if it's possible to do like homemade masks and just get the filters. One of my friends, she's done that, and I think it works perfect. So long you protect yourself very well and only go out when necessary.
I think that's a super idea. And we also saw one of the things that interests me quite a lot is when you're looking at. I mean, we're getting to look inside. Wasn't there a TV show called something like Through the Keyhole or whatever, where they went to look at the homes of celebrities. Hello, Sean. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's good to have you with us. I'm pretty sure there was a show called something like Through the Keyhole, where they went round behind the scenes in the homes of the rich and famous. Well, now we're getting to see in everybody's home. And as you can see, I got a pile of old junk but behind me. But I take great heart in the people who have books behind them, bookshelves. Some of them is people with bookshelves are enormous. The team, as you'd probably expect of that satirical BBC Two show, Have I Got News for You? They've all got huge bookcases, bigger than mine, you know.
Yeah.
But one rather unusual fellow with a bookshop. There were these four geezers, four pensioners, kind of strumming and making some music online recently, kind of like yesterday. One of these pensioners, a fellow called Charlie, appears to have some books behind him, looking at his room. But his co-conspirators from the Rolling Stones, especially Sir Mick, there's not a book in sight anywhere. But wasn't that an extraordinary concert? Together
Yes.
at home.
Yeah, that was a great concert. Well, we're going to watch it tonight as well.
We it was like from my view, it was like a 21st century version of Live Aid. I mean, I remember the first Live Aid. I remember the
Great
anniversary
talent.
one, and they were done with many of the same artists, you know, McCartney and so forth, and Elton and all this, and they had huge stages and stadia full of people, and they even had Phil Collins, didn't they, going on Concorde. I don't know if you knew that. He went on Concorde across the Atlantic Ocean so he could play at both of them, and you're like, wow. And now we see people at home, and we see kind of, you know, people in their kitchen playing guitars and all that kind of thing, which is just, it's wonderful to see.
Amazement. I'm amazed about the solidarity with great celebrities and humble people like Captain Tom. It's just amazing the way we are pulling through these kind of uncertain times together as a race, and finally getting to grips to what humanity is all about and what really is worth living for, and just looking after each other. And wow.
Yeah, very much so. Good evening, Peter. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're just talking about all the good and uplifting things, and you know, we're kind of quite private folks, but you know, now the world has come into our living room for tea, and I guess when this is all over, you'll have to all come round and join us for a cuppa. You know,
in my case, it's coffee.
Oh well, okay. In my case, it's Abbey Road. A little glass of Abbey Road. There was a satirical show, called The Ruttles, which was put on with the blessing of the Fab Four, and it was Neil Innes and Eric Idle and a few other people, and they dressed up as Beatles and and that was a while back. And in fact, one of the guys who actually played in that band is now a pub landlord here in Cambridge, where we're based. But one of the things, one of the sort of rather satirical elements of the show, The Ruttles, was that these four musicians, they called themselves the Prefab Four. The Beatles absolutely loved it, and the Beatles, when they would meet up with their pals, with Eric and Neil or whatever, they would actually, some of the remaining Beatles would actually play them Ruttles songs. These kind of jam sessions. So it's quite a nice sort of in-joke. But the narrative of the Ruttles went that in the late 1960s they were influenced by a substance from the East which influenced their writing and which caused a lot of scandal and everything. And for the purposes of the Ruttles quasi-documentary, it was tea. So there's this picture of them all of these four. Hello, Paul. Welcome aboard. We're just talking about that TV show and musical project, The Ruttles, which was Eric Idle and Neil Innes and a couple of other people playing a very nice homage to the Beatles. And then so in one of these publicity photos, they're all dressed up like the Beatles in the Sergeant Pepper era, and they're all holding up cups of tea because that was supposedly in the Ruttles kind of parallel story to the Beatles story. That's the rather unusual substance from the East that shall we say influenced some of their writings.
That's right. Now you go back to that concert again, Together at Home concert. Annie Lennox, wow, superb duet.
And her daughter,
yes,
which was an extraordinary duet,
it really melted my heart.
All sorts of people, new and old. One or two bands, I must admit, being a crotchety old pensioner myself, that I hadn't heard of, but was very impressed. And Macca said this, it's always good when you've got a huge audience and you've got a lot of very influential people that are being followed. It's always good to have a political statement. Sir Saint Bob wasn't a stranger to doing this at Live Aid. He picked up Maggie Thatcher by her collar and said, "Oi, let's have the VAT taken off all the money that had been donated," and the government actually backed down on that one. So Macca, Sir Paul McCartney, he had the most to say at this particular event. He said quite correctly that the healthcare workers were the true heroes of the crisis, and his mother Mary, apparently, who is obviously remembered in that song "Let It Be," "Mother Mary comes to me." She was a nurse during the Second World War, which I had no idea until yesterday. And Sir Paul said this: "Let's tell our leaders that we need them to strengthen the healthcare systems all round the world, so that a crisis like this never happens again."
That's right. And now they have the leadership for a very humble person, Captain Tom. Hey, if he can pull this out, wow. Just imagine people in power. What cannot they do for human race? Just let's get this fixed.
Yes. And another interesting thing with regard to that event, it's available online now. A very good evening, Manj. Thank you for joining us right now.
Hello,
So another good, very interesting aspect of this Together at Home festival. And if you haven't seen it, see it. It's being streamed all over the place. And unless since you're watching this, you've obviously got internet. So when we finish, not now. When we finish, go online and find it on one of the many places streaming it. But the stars were not asking for money, which was interesting. They weren't asking for donations. They were just recognising the fact that world leaders, corporate partners and huge philanthropists are putting a whole lot of money into the global. This is the first time, I think, the first time that the whole world has all got together to do one thing, because we're such a disparate nation of carbon-based bipeds. That was a thing that Arthur C. Clarke, he wrote a book called Carbon-Based Bipeds. That's us. And we're so disparate, pursuing own agendas, but kind of most people are kind of leading the push in the same direction to basically survive, if you know what I mean. Which I think is a terrific, it's a terrific gesture, I think.
Yeah.
So yes, right. Asda. The well-known supermarket is cancelling a quarter of its orders with clothing suppliers because they've got that own brand name called George. I think this is probably George. I don't know. And they've said that they'll only pay for part of the orders. Ooh la la! Because they're still selling the stuff in the stores. That's a bit naughty. But of course, it may be, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It may be that people are just like me, going in and out of those supermarkets there, heading for the food shelves, stocking up on the loo rolls and leaving. So that is possibility. That is a possibility. Not sure. And again, it's just a temporary thing. So
Yeah, we need to set the priorities. I was listening to someone in Mexico saying that a lot of people are pushing themselves. Oh, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got an agenda, time management, this, that, and the other. And really, this is the time in which really we need to take it easy and take stock of what really matters to us. Because after this, and reinvent ourselves, but just be patient, be flexible with your goals, and be flexible with your family, with yourself. Why? Because if we don't, and we just go on a rampage doing everything and trying to get into a situation, when this lockdown is finished, we're going to be just so worn out. We're going to need holidays. So we just take it easy, take a stock, and move on. Don't look back.
Now, some shock horror scandal about that concert, which is this: the aforementioned Mr. Watts, the drummer with all the books behind him. Indeed, he had his drumsticks when they were playing, but there wasn't a drum kit visible anywhere. So he must have been using the power of magic, because the drums were clearly audible on the broadcast. So isn't he a wonderful fella? That's all we can say, really.
Probably it's a Wii, kind of a, you know, that Wii game in which you can
Yes.
make. He probably just got one of those funny drums that make the noise.
Absolutely so, absolutely so. And you know, not being a very up to date fellow, I'm not quite sure who Charlie Puth is. He's obviously some kind of musician who's very famous at the moment. A very good evening to Michael. Thank you for joining us. But anyway, Charlie was performing from his bedroom, and you can clearly see in the photograph behind him. This is on the BBC website, that he hadn't made the bed. So goodness knows how many billion people were watching this broadcast. But you know, shock horror. It looks just the same as mine. So
He's a youngster. He's a youngster. He can get away with it.
It's excusable. I bet his mum
Younger
will
than us.
his mum won't have to tell him off when she sees that. I think, you know. Stevie Wonder. It was nice to see Stevie playing tribute to the late Bill Withers, who left us very, very recently indeed. So on this Together at Home concert, Stevie, rather than playing one of his compositions, he played "Lean on Me," the magnificent song by Bill Withers. He performed also one of his own songs, "Love's in Need of Love Today," as well. You know, it's interesting to totally interesting to see people's setups at home. You know, because you've got some people just sort of like sitting like us. Other people have people in the music industry have professional studios at home. So that's very interesting. Sheryl Crow had like almost the Starship Enterprise behind her, with all these tape recorders and mixing consoles and microphones and bits and pieces. So you know, it's that is one heck of a room she's got, with guitars all the way around the wall where we've got books here. So so you know, and everybody. Yeah, everybody did pretty well. A few people did their videos in portrait mode rather than landscape, but you know, these are sort of understandable little things that go on. Hello, Andy. Thanks for joining us today. How was your day? I mean, how's everybody's day been? It's been very sunny. So come on, let us know who went out and who stayed home.
Who had the barbecue? Lovely weather for barbecue.
Absolutely. Well, if you've got a big garden and if it's just the family, then you know, no problem. Barbecued rat is a very great sort of delicacy in these difficult times.
No.
Well, maybe not. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, today was one of those days for me. I mean, we've been so busy, super busy last week, preparing stuff. That we today I had personally had a bit of a mad day in which I didn't know one of those things that you go through, but then you pick up yourself. I mean, you have to learn to be resilient, and but then you think, okay, take a stock, and then I thought, hang on, the key of this is just don't push myself to a limit and just take one day at a time. Today is Sunday, so
yeah,
and tomorrow's Monday.
Now, hands up, who knows what TikTok is? Oh, well, you'll have to tell me then. What is it?
It's a platform. It's a social media platform, isn't it? In which people just record funny videos and stuff when they're bored. One of my nephews has done fantastically well. And he's done fabulous.
Wow.
Very comical videos.
Oh, wow. Our friend Fiona knows a YouTube star called PewDiePie, so there are stars all around us. But anyway, you know that show Big Brother, which I have to confess I've never even watched a single part of it. It always reminds me of the George Orwell thing, 1984. But anyways, 6 of the biggest stars on this TikTok platform, youngsters, have moved in together into a house. There are 3 boys and 3 girls, so it's a bit like Big Brother.
Oh.
And combined, they have one hell of a lot of viewers or followers or whatever. Their combined following is 14 million people, a bit like us, really.
Yeah, right.
And you know, so the reach of their videos is 73 million people a week, and so they decided to, you know, just get together and make sort of wacky videos all together, and they actually planned this before lockdown. They actually all moved into the house before lockdown, and now they're locked down.
Is that HMO then they're living on?
Well,
Or shared accommodation?
who knows? I mean, it might be a holiday let. I wouldn't like to say. You're getting all technical on me. Oh my goodness me. So don't know.
Oh, ladies, for the Nirvana Spa.co.uk, apparently they are giving such a good. They send stuff to your house to give yourself a facial, and they with instructions how to do it. Of course, you have to pay for the products, but I think spa is one of my first thing on the list once we're out of this lockdown. Spa day. So, but in the meantime, you can give your own spa. So Nirvana Spa.co.uk. Sorry about that. It just came.
Oh my.
Feed.
Oh my.
Oops.
I'm so ignorant about music, aren't I? Because Rocker Kev tells me that Charlie Puth did the song "When I See You Again" from Fast and Furious. Of course, of course, of course. So that has become, I guess, in retrospect now, a tribute to the actor Paul Walker, who died, and it's got 4.5 billion views on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow! Oh wow!
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
even more than that fellow from South Korea, isn't it? You know, Gangnam Style.
Yeah, yeah. They were. I think they. Yeah, awesome film. Awesome
Wow!
film.
Wow! 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 You see, so you learn something every day, don't you? Now, in Berlin, there were DJs staging Easter raves. I didn't know about this. I found out about this today. And the nightclubs to keep everything going, but there weren't any punters on the floor. Nobody on the dance floors, and they were all being streamed, and they were encouraging people to make donations. So that's quite a nice way to sort of come together, isn't it? In times of crisis. Now, my very good friend Jeffrey says, "Thank you for another day. Most of my books are in storage." But my old bookcases were bigger than ours. I guess.
Really?
Wow,
Wow.
indeed. Wow, indeed. In my last house, I used to have them sort of wall to wall, fitted on shelves that were installed in the house. But kind of here, we just kind of put them there. But we got in the room downstairs. There's another lot of bookcases there. So I think we've got about 9 or 10, and we've got 3 or 4 of these bookcases still flat packed downstairs, waiting to be unpacked. And we've got books
Yes.
in carrier bags waiting
And we
to
go
go on
buying
them.
our books now, so it's more books. So I wonder if Jeffrey does stock take. Do you have stock take of what books do you have
Yeah. Now,
on a library kind of thing?
the $10,000 question, and I'm glad you should ask that, is why are most of my books stacked horizontally? And there is a good answer to this, which is this. Here in Cambridge, we've got one of the 3 copyright libraries in the UK, the others being the British Library near King's Cross and the Bodleian Library in that other place that we don't talk about very much, the one that's developing the vaccine faster than us, Oxford. In that library, I have been inside over the years. In fact, my dad managed to get himself. He managed to blag himself a card to get in there because he was doing some studies, and they are happy to open their doors to anybody living locally who is studying something. So he was able to go to the reading room and focus on his areas of interest, which was fabulous. But in that library, the books are not arranged in order of according to subject and this kind of thing. These aren't at the moment because I moved home. Although I've been here 8 years, I haven't quite got round to sort of the packing wasn't as orderly. In the old place, they were all ordered or arranged according to what they're about and this kind of thing. But this time they just came in a bunch of boxes with heavy moving boys. Go, ooh, where should I put that, Gov? And so a lot of books arrived. I remembered that in the university library, the books are not arranged by subject matter, they're arranged by size. And this allows, and this university library here in Cambridge, it was designed by a guy called Gilbert Scott, who is the fella. We got some. Oh yeah, Ian was looking over there. Well,
Mine's horizontal.
we have
the
got
right way.
some. We have got some books that on Irma's shelves. The books are stacked the right way around, but on mine they're horizontal. But you get more books into the shelves, and you can pull them out and read them, and you can put them back, and so it sort of works. It's not. I agree. It's not very elegant, and if you can keep a secret. There are actually 2 layers of books on the shelves as well. So the ones at the front that I get a chance to look at very often, and the ones at the back, which are there to just add a bit of ballast.
Well, the good thing is that you don't get any dust in between the books because there's nothing that you can get through. So it could be a simple way of simplify your life if you don't want to dust. But mine are the right way. So
Yeah.
I like to have a look. But I do books for research, for leisure, and one of those
But,
things we like books.
so there we are. The truth is out there somewhere. I don't recommend that as a way forward, but if you've just got so many books, I mean, I was in in mid 1980s, I was in a house that had been owned by a school teacher. He was my landlord at the time, and then when he passed away, I kind of inherited all of his books as well, because there was nobody else to take them. So it's a kind of large number of books have come into my life. And obviously, he was an English teacher, so that was a great. And in fact, all those encyclopediae on the top there used to belong to him. Britannica, just got overwhelmed. And who would have thought that after all those years that Encyclopedia Britannica wouldn't come out in those beautiful leather-bound volumes anymore? But there is a sense, and it's a bit of a curious sense, in which Wikipedia is more accurate today than Encyclopedia Britannica, because it's updated every day and not printed every year or two. So we live in strange times. We really do.
But books are important. I mean, there are Kindles, there are all sorts of electronic e-books, etc., etc. But there is nothing, at least for me, nothing compared to really getting the book and touch it and feel it and smell it. And it's just one of those things that we have that leisure. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which reminds me, I used to work in a place called Dawson Books, and years ago. So that was my great place to work for, because I would get books. I had a library there, so I would look which one would it be, and I remember my co-workers would say, "What are you going to do with so many books? Are you going to build a house?" That's a thought.
Wow. With your permission, I'd just like to lean across and have a bit of a sniff of one of your books, if that's okay. Oh, heaven! That's not something that that's a fetish I've never got into before. So you saw it first right here. Jeffrey tells me he's got a card for the BL, which is absolutely terrific. I used to have a card for the university, for the UL here in Cambridge, but I haven't got one at the moment. But I expect if I was researching something that they would give me one again. And Jeffrey very kindly, and thank you, sir, says that he thought yesterday's guest was wonderful. That's Dr. Michael Brooks. He studied here in Cambridge as well, and he now practices emergency medicine on the front line. He's in the A&E dealing with all these cases coming in, and thank you for your positive feedback on that one.
He's also director of Patient Source, is that right?
He is a director of his own company, Patient Source, that provides software for the NHS and for other hospitals which is way better than anything else out there, and enables them to keep track of patient records and all that kind of thing. And most of the existing systems are built for private hospitals, and their principal objective is billing, but with all the other bits bolted on. But Dr. Mike did his the other way round, so that his principal thing is to make the software to make it for the end user look as close as possible to the old paper system that they're familiar with a few added enhancements that help them. And then it's the billing side that's bolted on. It still works just as efficiently, but his front end is super robust. And what he doesn't know about computer security just ain't worth knowing. And also, I should point out, but just prior to our broadcast yesterday, which we did, we went on for even longer than you and I. We went on for an hour and a half, and it was all kind of live down a split screen, because I can't go to his house because we're in lockdown, even though he lives just down the road. Interestingly, before we went on, we had a sort of technical thing, because I wanted to make a recording at the same time as streaming it live, which involves deriving two lots of pictures out of the system and this kind of thing. And he wasn't set up to do this. So in the space of about a quarter of an hour, he downloaded all this software and set it up and configured it, and was moving from this room to the next and everything, and did just a remarkable job on the tech as well of putting everything together. And he's also appeared on the BBC and on doctors' medical channels and this kind of thing as well. So it was a real honour to have him on the thing with me before. And we went to the same school a few years apart, really. Just
a few.
But he remembered some of the teachers who had just started when I was at school, being like heads of department, just coming up to their retirements when he was there. So isn't that an amazing thing? What an incredibly kind of small world it is.
Yeah.
Sewing enthusiast. Are you a sewing enthusiast, Irma? Nope. Neither am I. But if we had been, what?
I only made one dress years ago. Well, that's it. That was my contribution to the sewing thing.
I have to confess that in addition to my new book sniffing fetish, which we saw earlier, I've never made a dress for myself. I always have to wear other people's. Only
That's
joking.
the thing.
Only joking. Now, so sewing enthusiasts in the UK have been making hospital uniforms, and there was a nurse in London who posted a request online for scrubs in her local self-help group. There are a lot of these available, and since then a small army of volunteers have got together, and it's called Scrub Hub, which is a terrific initiative.
That was the last of the coffee.
Here in England, there aren't many cities that have. Oh, can we show them this? Look, this is a wonderful thing that we've got here that keeps us cool. Or if you're wondering what the noise is in the background, it's wonderful. Well, look, it's sort of you get to see behind the scenes. It can also work as a chin rest.
No, it's a fan. It's a handheld fan. You see, before we used to have the ones that now you just.
But isn't that nice?
What happens is we used to have lots of meetings and different cafes and places and or offices, and sometimes I found myself getting very hot because we would be near a window, etc., etc. So I carried this in my handbag, so it's quite handy. That was a fun. Okay, moving on.
So, Rocker Kev says that his eyesight has deteriorated. I'm sorry to hear that, and he's not read as much as he used to. And a lot of his books are in storage, and he uses Google to look things up. And we've got the internet at our fingertips. And and hello, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us this evening. Well, I'm letting all the secrets out of the bag tonight. So I have to tell you that a lot of my expertise comes from my ability to use Google. And so people will message me and say, blah, 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 what's the answer to that? And I kind of just Google it, and I have the answer to that. And then I send them that, and they go, wow, how do you know that stuff? And I never let on.
You know this young lad in USA who developed the first software to trace the COVID-19, and that it was a bit of controversy. His video was taken down, then back up again, but he said it himself that he developed that software self-taught. I said, all you have to do is Google it, and that's how you develop the software.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely.
So information is at our fingertips. Just the right kind of information that we need to latch on and be selective as to what to feed our brains with and what's it really accurate to what we want to achieve. And in this case, his was who was laughing. So there you go.
Yeah, and it's the whole thing is very, very interesting, really. And there was a website, I don't know if it's still going, but it was called Let Me Google That For You. And you'd put in a search query, and then when somebody had asked a really dumb question online or something, you could just post a link to that. And then it was a sort of animated version of the Google website where it would appear to be typing it into Google, and then the answer would come up. And that was quite funny, really. And you say to people, and then you could shorten the URL, one of those URL shorteners, and you'd say, the answer's here.
Yeah. All we have to do is be aware of the kind of information that we that is accurate, so you can share it, and that's all there is, really. So many fake news that, well,
Whoa.
controversies, etc., plots, you name it.
Guy Fawkes. Now, not wishing to be too well. That's a plot, and not wishing to be not having had a car for all my life, and going around for well a long time when I was living in London, using an hour to be honest, so I would jump on the tube and head around, and occasionally on the old bus, but they don't clean the seats on them very often, so that's not recommended. When I made the decision to leave the bright lights of London and head out to somewhere else, I thought, well, how am I going to get around? So I couldn't really live in some village somewhere because you kind of like need a car, really. So I decided to get back on my push bike. I very rapidly abandoned cycling through central London. In fact, after about 2 or 3 months, when I was knocked off my bicycle by a car. And I thought that was a pretty good thing. And there was a taxi coming along just behind that car. And I was like sprawled out in the middle of the road all over the place. And the car basically got too close and his wing mirror clipped my handlebars, which was ever so naughty. And so at that point, cycling was finished for me. So I thought, well, if I'm going to be somewhere that's not London, I've got to find somewhere where I can cycle around. And that was Oxford, Cambridge or Amsterdam. Well, Amsterdam is in a different country, although it's got Anne Frank's house in it and everything. So it's a nice old place. But then it's Oxford and Cambridge, and everybody knows that Oxford is the other place. So I had to come to the place, which is how I came here all those years ago. Nearly 2 decades I've been here now. Hopping on the old bicycle. But cities in Germany have done something absolutely wonderful as a response to coronavirus in a way that you could only do in Germany, to help their cyclists, of whom they have many, to improve their social distancing without getting in the way of the traffic. So they've widened the bike lanes. The initiative had started before
Yes.
coronavirus, but it's certainly helping now that you know, now they can probably cycle down all the lanes of the road 6 abreast because cars are not out there. But I think that's a super initiative, and I think it's great that some progress has been made there. And I do like that. I do like that. I do think that's a super story.
Yeah. Here in Cambridge, it's lots of cyclists, and it's quite good. And more so when the students come, and you need to be given chance and opportunity for them to get used to the rules of cycling. I remember the very first time I cycled in Cambridge, I had a very it was a very close encounter with a bad hair day kind of thing. So
it's something to get used to. But then it was our son said, look, just think a bit like driving the car, didn't he? That was the thing that clicked it really. So which is the thing really, because you're a road vehicle, and strictly speaking, you can. It's not against the highway code to cycle down the middle of the road, and so you could do that. You see, and then the cars would have to give you a wide berth. But I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that. You didn't hear that from me, and I don't recommend it. And I don't do it. And you might get a sort of angry motorist, road rage and things. So let's not do that. Perhaps it doesn't seem, things in the outside world seem like an eon away, don't they? Really. And things like bushfires in Australia, for example, on Greta Thunberg, who we haven't heard anything of, and all sorts of other things. Absolutely, and Brexit, you don't hear anything about that anymore. You don't hear anything about the £350 million a week for the NHS on the bus either, and I would like to hear more of that. But anyway, that's just my personal opinion. But other than that, the government's doing a great job. But another thing going on was Notre Dame, which burnt down, as you will remember. And that seems like an eon ago, but it was only a year ago. And to commemorate that, they actually managed to rig something up so that the bells of Notre Dame could be heard for the first time in a year, ringing out, and that was on Wednesday night last week. And I think it's a wonderful gesture. And it was done as a tribute to all our very brave medics, including Dr. Mike, who was on here yesterday, battling this virus and putting their lives on the line all around the world. And I think that's absolutely fantastic gesture. And work is going on right now to restore Notre Dame in time for the 2024 Olympics, by which time I think we will all be out and about and out of our houses again. And they're going to be taking place in Paris this time around, which is quite a thing, really, because an Olympics in Europe is kind of really something, isn't it, really? Now, you'll have to tell me who Matthew McConaughey is. Well, so Rocket Kev, if you could let me know. But anyway, he is an actor, and his movie that he's working on at the moment, I'm not quite sure which one that is in furlough or whatever. It's resting a bit. So he decided to do some online bingo for residents at an assisted elderly residents in an assisted living community in Texas. They had already asked them last September to join them for a game, and so he took up the application along with his mum and his wife and kids, and he was doing some bingo calling online for all the residents, and then doing a Q&A, answering their questions, and very nice, and absolutely the residents are absolutely blown away by that. It's nice. It's nice.
Amazing. We need to really step out of our comfort zone, in my case, and you just be outrageous.
If you want us to do some bingo on one of these, we're happy to oblige. Two Fat Ladies, 66.
Oh, I don't know. I had the bingo.
That's the only one I know.
Okay.
But there are others, I'm sure. It's interesting. But Matthew McConaughey is an interesting fellow because he's also a professor of practice in media studies at the University of Texas in Austin. So he gets around. And there's a few more things to report. There's an 89-year-old who sews 600 masks while listening to the Beatles, and that's a wonderful thing as well. So I'm 89 years old as well, and I sometimes listen to the Beatles too. So it's very good for the soul. And
a rocker.
A rocker, yes. I'm an 89-year-old rocker. I am in my rocking chair,
Yep, that's right.
my Zimmer frame. Have you got something good done there? You were taking a little sneak peek.
Yeah. Oh, it's just this. We all live with the objective of being happy. Our lives are all different and yet the same. That's by Anne Frank.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! And there was the post that I saw on a social media platform today about Anne Frank, and it said, "Look, Anne Frank was in the attic for was it 2 or 3 years or something, and you guys are moaning. You got Netflix and food delivered every day from the store and everything else, and and central heating and the works, and you're not hid up in the attic."
Yes, I hear what you're saying, and yes, you're probably right. But the thing is, we are in that part of mourning stage because the way we used to live is gone. It's completely gone, and we don't know what's going to happen next. So we are kind of mourning. So all these kind of, for example, the way I felt today was, I did feel a bit down a bit in terms of, okay, what's happening? Probably was because we were so busy during the week.
Ooh.
And just now not being able to enjoy the day, like going out for a picnic and going out for a cycle ride long enough, 2, 3, 4 miles.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that. So it's kind of a mourning thing in terms of the way we used to live. But then something sparks in your head and you kind of put yourself together and you get yourself by your bootstraps and just keep going.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to be fair, yes, our bicycles are under tarpaulin in the front garden, all tied up, and they haven't been touched since this lockdown. So, and today we both had this idea that it would be lovely to go and cycle along the river, but
a picnic.
that ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. So
Play with the cows. There's some cows roaming around in Cambridge.
There
What's the
are
story
indeed.
behind that?
There's a lady who lives in a terraced Victorian 2 up 2 down little house, and she came up with a medieval statute, which was still on the law on the council's books, which said that any farmer could come along to the local authority and ask them and ask to graze their cattle on the open spaces. So she went along to the council. The council, much to their delight, I'm sure, has had to appoint a cow officer who is now in charge of this, and you can go through the centre of our city and all the public open spaces. Now you'll find cows grazing, which is the most extraordinary thing. And the council's had to put in, they must be absolutely delighted, they've had to put in cattle grids in all these parks and all this kind of stuff. So, yay! And you're right in the centre of Cambridge, and you've got cows just at the back of King's College and that kind of thing, all over the place. And it is a big, sprawling urban farm, which is a remarkable thing, actually, to be honest. It's a 1 in a million thing. Hello, Scott. Thank you for joining us this evening. How are things? You've been to Cambridge here once. I remember you coming up, and hope things are good with you during lockdown. Now, why didn't I know? Well, I did know, actually. I did know Kevin at the point where I came up here, but we'd never had this discussion. So he's sent me this link, which we're opening now, on the 20 most bike-friendly cities in the world, and I'm hoping that the one where I currently am is number 1. It's one of these pages that's taking a heck of a time to read, to load, as they do, and it's probably glitching all the video as well at the same time, as appears to possibly be the case here. So if that is, I hugely apologise. In fact, I think I'm going to stop it loading as of right now. And I think I should probably do that. It's Wired magazine. It's an immensely long-looking article. I'm actually completely closing the tab because it's made us go well slow on the video. So apologies for that.
Perhaps Kevin could tell us which city is the one ranking at the top 5 or the top 5. The top 5.
We promise to look at that later, and thank you very much for kind of sending that our way. But bear in mind that the computer is nearly as old as me, clocking in at 87 years, so it's like a sort of abacus, really, and can't do all this sort of amazing techie stuff. And then we talked earlier on, didn't we, about sniffing? We were going on a big thing about sniffing books because actually,
okay.
I used to sniff. I used to sniff geography books at school. They had a very unique sort of smell in the 1970s because it's like they were the ink wasn't completely dry or whatever. And yes, hello Scott, and also hello Gaia. Thank you for joining us this evening at home. So anyway, in the context of sniffing, dogs are normally meant to the kind of you see the prison guards trying to track the prisoners by sniffing them out, and then the prisoners head down the river for in a straight line for about a mile, and then the dogs give up. But dogs have whole bits of their head specially developed for sniffing, and great big chambers and things where like one molecule can come in and they're on the case. Hence, they're also used for narcotics. When I actually visited in Amsterdam, I went to Anne Frank's house, and then on the way back, because it was just being a short place away, I didn't fly, I went on the bus, and on the way back the bus was emptied and everybody was frisked and everything, and then the sniffer dogs came in. I can't think why the sniffer dogs would come in to a bus coming from Amsterdam back to the UK, but anyway they did. And you know, they didn't find my secret stash of apricots in my suitcase, so that was fine, and I was able to munch them on the bus coming back to London. But anyways, and I just spilt a whole lot of tea everywhere, but not too much of it went on the laptop here, which is jolly good. Now, did you see her face? Oh, you know, my shirt. Okay, so it's okay. So anyway, they're teaching dogs. I think this is true. They're teaching dogs to sniff out COVID-19, which is quite an extraordinary thing. And yeah, there's a charity, a medical charity, here in England that is doing that. Wow. They've successfully been able to sniff out a lot of things in their time.
I understand that they can sniff cancer, apparently, dogs. And
yes.
It's just not that they've been trained, it's just one of these little powers that they have.
Yes.
In terms of sniffing illnesses. But I didn't realise that COVID-19 would be the case. I didn't know.
It is indeed a very very curious thing. And I'm extremely surprised about this. I've now managed to crash my little laptop as well. I got the blue screen of death, but so I shall improv for the rest of our 15 minutes to get. See, my secret's out there. I have stuff on there to talk about. But you know, there's plenty more.
Yeah. But I like the way you take pressure. You just kind of chill and move on, which is good. Which reminds me of this one. You know that we're locked indoors, etc. This and the other. We just have ups and downs. We're like all over the place. But I'm reading this one from the Little Book of Wisdom from the Dalai Lama. Is the key to fulfillment is unless our minds are stable and calm, no matter how comfortable our physical condition may be, they will give us no pleasure. Therefore, the key to a happy life, now and in the future, is to develop a happy mind. So we have to build those habits.
That's good. That's great. Hello, Angelos. Thank you for joining us this evening. So yeah, a few things that I wanted to talk about. There was a district of Massachusetts. I can't remember the name of it now, but there's a district of Massachusetts where 1/3 they did a random test where they got some volunteers. I think it was 200 or 300 people volunteered, and they tested them for this coronavirus, and 1/3 of them had the antibodies. That's a huge number, but as far as I know, they haven't had huge spike in cases there or anything like this. So all these people were walking around asymptomatic and presumably with some measure of immunity to it, and they weren't even aware they've had it, which is quite interesting. And yeah, looking at the numbers now, one of the things that we're going to do is this kind of antibody test. There are doubts about its reliability, but one of the things that our government has been talking about is testing big cross sections of people randomly, just to see how many people in the UK have got this virus. It is probably in the millions. My little spreadsheets indicate that there are, quite regardless of the nonsense figures being published by the government, which is just fiction, that there are probably millions of people infected with them, which on a plus point means that the people dying and going into ICU of the intensive care is less than you know, as a percentage. It's less than some of these figures that have been bandied around, because you know, if the whole country's got it and only one person is very very sick, then it's not as dangerous as you might have thought. It is still dangerous. We do still need to stay at home, but not as bad as you might think. And in 6 out of the last 9 days, so in other words, since last weekend, since Saturday last weekend, we've seen declines. Today was the biggest decline of all, day on day, and you can't draw too much hope from one number, but with all the sort of powers of prediction and spreadsheets and things that I've got, if this trend continues, then by the middle of next month, in fact, I think it's Sunday the 17th, I think, of May, according to my spreadsheet, we go into double figures for the daily number of deaths, fewer than 100. And so if that trend continues, and if people don't get a bit too relaxed, I know one of the DIY centres was opening up some of its stores now again, and everybody's going, well, hey, and I'm thinking, no, it's too soon.
Yeah, but I think it's strategic. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Yes, we know we must stay indoors. Yeah, but I understand that from the government point of view, it might have been a strategic move. Because why? Because you've been indoors, you notice that there are little things to do around the house, so it's kind of keeping you busy.
Yeah, but you're indoors, you're putting up that shelf, you're sawing away, you cut off your thumb, you've got your thumb in a little plastic bag. Visualize that, yeah, and you want to go into A&E, and you can't, of course, because it's full of people with viruses. So there are good reasons to do less at home during the current pandemic.
Yeah, one pastime that you can build up now is that if you live with your partner, husband, wife, or children, you just gotta find the little tricks to make them laugh and to make them just spur out of their comfort zone. I'm a very visual thinker. Yep, and every time David comes with a little finger in a plastic bag, I think of it, and it's
no,
not nice. It's not
that was
nice.
a bit naughty of me, wasn't it? But yeah, no,
nice.
I couldn't resist. But anyways, what they're saying is like with gardening and with all these kinds of thing that be careful, because that a lot of people do go into hospitals with things that have happened around the home, so if you minimize it, or if you're going to do it, be very, very careful is what I'm saying. Okay. So oh my goodness, so there's good news and there's bad news, okay, in because Kevin's just sent me the list of the top, the world's top 10 cycling cities. Now in terms of the good news, okay, so let me tell you the bad news. The bad news is that the city of Cambridge is not in the top 10.
Damn it.
The good news is that neither is Oxford. Hey! So number 1, Copenhagen, interestingly. Number 2, Amsterdam. A lot from the Netherlands. Utrecht, Antwerp, and then Strasbourg, Bordeaux, Oslo, Paris, Vienna, and Helsinki. That is the top 10 of cycling cities. So I did have a fair choice of places to go, but not much here in the UK. UK, get stuck in there and let's have some more cycling lanes and some more cycle-friendly cities.
It'll be great. It'll be good if we can develop that. Yeah. So in the meantime, it's a good time to develop. Did you know that the Greek had how many? I think we spoke about this one earlier.
We did.
Or last week.
The Words for Love, yes.
Yeah, the Words for Love, and I think it's a good time to develop this one.
Philotia,
which is self-love. So it's a good time the Greek understood that in order to care for others, we must first learn to care for ourselves.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
Develop self-love.
And yeah, because it is from that our love for others must emanate. Because if we don't know how to love ourselves, how on earth can we know how to love other people?
Indeed.
And I agree. It's one of life's very great lessons. I think absolutely. So there are many life lessons that we draw, and now we've got the time to reflect on all this, haven't we? Really.
Yeah.
And with the books there and with other sources, we can go back not just 100, we can go back to thousands of years to almost like sit down with some of the wisest people that ever lived, and we can draw from their observations and from their experiences and enrich our lives. And I'm a great fan of those ancient philosophers. I thought they were really kind of smart fellas, and for me, a lot of the stuff that they did. I mean, if some of our more modern philosophers and folks, Two Fat Ladies, Kevin tells me is some 88, and not 66. So I have displayed my total ignorance at the game of bingo. So if we do a bingo session, then one down here, it'll have to be comedy bingo where I get it all wrong. Whoa.
I'm trying to think of one, but I can't. I don't know. I've played bingo, but I can't think of another one. 17. One and in. No?
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, one of the ancient philosophers, Aristotle, says all friendly feelings for others are an extension of a man's feeling for himself.
Oh wow. Wow.
You see?
Yeah. Is he the one who is a bug of the bottle? I think he is.
Which one is it?
Aristotle was a bug of the bottle. That's a song by Monty Python, the philosopher's song. Do check. It's hysterically funny. Do check it out if you get the chance. Those guys were absolute hoot. They really were. Now Scott says that he's been heading up teams decontaminating wards where there are confirmed cases, and he's very sad to hear, and as are we, reading this about the number of people passing due to cross contamination.
Yes.
One of the things that our friend Dr. Mike told us yesterday is that they've divided their hospital into two zones, a hot zone and a cold zone, and the slightest hint of COVID-19 and you're into the hot part of the hospital, and they have different teams working on both halves. The doctors do not cross from one half to another, but cross contamination is always going to take place.
Yes.
And here in our home, because I'm one of the high risk categories, so I just don't want to meet the Grim Reaper any sooner than I have to. So and also being a bit of a fanatic, we have set up zones now in our home, which are sort of red, orange, and green. Upstairs here it's green, but I'm not even wearing the same slippers that I'd wear downstairs and all that kind of stuff. And the mail comes through the door, and I'll only open that with the old surgical gloves, and then the envelopes are immediately tossed away, and all the shopping that comes in, all the wrapping is tossed away because some guy in the shop who was probably blowing his nose, and then he handles this thing and goes, "No, I won't buy that one. I'll buy that one." And so despite the fact that I'm sure that all our stores are maintaining huge precautions behind the scenes, once the stuff is out on the shelves, it's free for all. And the exception to that is some of the fast food outlets, who, according to that roving red top, the Daily Mail, in fact, well, they had photos to prove it, were not wearing masks and not wearing gloves in preparing all their pizzas and stuff for the punters.
But it's common sense in terms of. I wonder what kind of system is Scott using. Is it a fogging machine they use to decontaminate areas? Is it because we used to have a fogging machine in that's my previous business that we had, in which we would go to place and just fog the whole area, and just in order to decontaminate the whole thing. Obviously, it had to be empty. You had to lock it after that. So I wonder what kind of decontamination technique does he uses.
Do let us know.
Interesting to know,
Scott. Absolutely. So Scott read the same thing as us in the New York Times, apparently about training dogs to sniff out the COVID, and he's sure that they'll succeed in that. And Scott wonders about people getting it again, and this is something, Scott, you really should. I'll send you a link actually after we come off from my friend Dr. Mike Brooks, where I interviewed him yesterday about coronavirus. And one of the things we were talking about is, do you get immunity from this virus after you've had it? And the answer is probably not for as long as we think, because coronavirus is one of these things that mutates, and it doesn't kick up a huge immune response in the body, so that kind of wears off. We're hoping that the vaccines will, because they'll be specifically engineered to combat it, that they'll give the body, in fact, a longer period of immunity than actually having it. Mm-hmm. But it appears, and this is just my interpretation of what my friend the expert said yesterday, that this herd immunity strategy that they were talking about here in the UK in the middle of March, and then suddenly abandoned because everybody realised that nobody would vote for a government that killed 500,000 of its own citizens. But that was flawed, because you wouldn't, from naturally catching the virus, get long-term immunity from it. Shall we say it's less likely than was thought back then. Again, there's no hard and fast information about that. There are cases, I believe, of as Scott says, of it recurring. People get a clean test and then they get it again. So this is because we've had a long time, hundreds of years and probably thousands of years to get used to influenza and all this kind of thing. This one's just been pulled out of a hat by the bioterrorist, which is Mother Nature, who is normally pretty damn good. But when we abuse the planet a bit, and we put all our animals in cages and intensively farm them, we cut down the forests to make burgers and all this kind of thing, then Mother Nature says, whoa, I'm going to prune a few of you guys off and thin out the human population a bit. So we do very foolish things, and the wet markets and all these other things. And we should take stock of this, and not only we should beef up our health responses to things, but we should stop doing the things that caused them in the first place, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, it's common sense. Common sense. Anything in excess really causes harm. Anything, doesn't matter if you drink too much water, it just doesn't do you any good. Anything in excess.
You can never drink too much tea, though. Having said that.
Well, I ran out of coffee, and I think we are. I ran out of coffee.
Oh, well, I'm not going to turn this one upside down because it does have quite a lot of tea in it still.
Right then. So.
A final thought from the wise one. There's the idiot and the wise one.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Nope. Right, okay. Ooh. Actions speak louder than words. Merely to call oneself a Buddhist is of little value. So, basically, this is an interesting one. I've just opened it randomly. But basically, if you have thoughts, good, positive thoughts, if you are the kind of person that are good in nature, it's not good just to go on and say it, but you have to really practice it with you and with those around you.
Absolutely. And that would almost be the point on which we'd end, except that Scott just came back with an answer to your question. And he says, we currently use an electrostatic sprayer. We have a molecular bond application with microkill for 6 months of coronavirus. One of the only UK companies delivering this level of protection. And ain't that absolutely awesome? How often are we doing these live sessions? We're doing them most days, actually, Scott, because we made a kind of promise to ourselves and to everyone that we would come on every night during lockdown to cheer everybody and ourselves. I was having this conversation with Jeffrey the other day. He said, thanks for cheering everybody up. I said it cheers us up as well, because it puts into our daily calendar something that we do. We can't promise. The theory is that we come on at 7 every day, but in practice it's about 8, isn't it? Really, by the time we've
7:30,
had our supper and I made an omelette today, and I did some washing up.
It was delicious. It's getting better.
So, getting better all the time. That's another Beatles song, isn't it? There's songs rock my world, being a sort of DJ fella. Now, here's an interesting thing. Kevin says he's thinking, will women who've recovered from coronavirus pass on the antibodies to their babies? So gradually this will help the spread. That's a possibility. I think it would be fantastic if they do. I think we'll have to do another one with Dr. Mike, and we're taking questions. And I think that's one we'll have to pass on, because and clearly in nature we'd be immune to this or whatever in 150 years, but we haven't got 150 years. We need to nail this now, because it's
I have.
Well,
my second name is Batusalin.
Society as a whole.
Okay.
We want to. You want to stay. Okay, so you're saying you want to stay indoors with me for 150 years?
No.
Bring it on. Bring it on. No going out.
No.
And we got a new saddle for the bicycle, especially. We haven't had a chance to.
A nice squishy one.
I bought that in the autumn, but we haven't put it on yet or anything like that. So Scott says, great news, thank you. So yeah, we would love to see you, to invite you to our home again tomorrow if you're around. Failing that, later in the week, and we have made a commitment to do this every day until we're past this horrible, nasty thing. Occasionally we have guests in, but mostly it's the two of us, isn't it?
Yeah, just the two of us. And with this one?
And with that, we'll wish you, won't wish you anything. We'll wish you a very good night. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us. It's a real honour to have you with us. And we hope to see you again very, very soon. In our case, we'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Take care now.
Bye.